All right, so get this. Today we are diving deep, and I mean deep, into the surprising connections between, wait for it, the teachings of Jesus and Buddha.
Wow.
Yeah, right. Wild. And get this, the whole thing is sparked by this article. It's called The Teachings of Jesus and Buddha, A Harmonious Intersection.
Interesting title.
Seriously. And you wouldn't believe the mind-blowing connections. I mean, these guys are from totally different worlds, you
Yeah.
know?
Worlds apart, for sure.
But hold on tight because the common ground they share is, well, you'll see. Where should we even begin to untangle this web?
Well, a good place to start might be their shared emphasis on love and compassion.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, everyone knows that Jesus was all about love thy neighbor,
Yeah,
right?
for sure. Classic Jesus.
But the article highlights how this idea is deeply rooted in Buddhist teachings, too. Like, there's this concept of metta, which is all about loving kindness.
Okay, so it's more than just, like, being nice to people.
Exactly. It's deeper than that. For both Jesus and Buddha, this love and compassion stuff, it was a force for real change. Like Jesus, he went against the grain, embraced the outcasts, those who were seen as sinners.
Yeah.
And then you have Buddha, born into royalty, and what does he do? Gives it all up. Advocates for the worth of, well, everyone.
Well, so they didn't just talk the talk.
Oh, no, they walked it, for sure. And that's what makes their teachings so powerful, I think. They're not just, like, nice ideas. They're a guide to actually live a better life, a life with meaning.
Okay, I am getting that for sure. So love and compassion are the foundation, but the article goes even further, right? It says inner transformation is like the key to spiritual fulfillment.
Right. Things get super interesting there. Think about it. The kingdom of God is within you, Jesus said.
Oh, yeah.
That's a journey inward, discovering something divine within us. Buddha, though, he was all about mindfulness and meditation, self-awareness, breaking free from the illusions of the ego.
It's almost like they're both saying, hey, true happiness isn't out there, it's inside you.
Exactly. And it's wild how much those ancient ideas resonate with what we're into today, right? Mindfulness, meditation, inner peace, all that stuff. We're like rediscovering this timeless wisdom.
This is blowing my mind. Wait, I'm seeing the connections, but let's dig into specifics.
Yeah.
The article talks about humility and selflessness, right? How did that actually play out?
Well, picture this. Jesus washing his disciples' feet.
Oh, yeah. Powerful image.
Talk about turning the power structure upside down. And Buddha, by embracing simplicity, he detaches from all those worldly things, those ego trips.
It's like they're saying true greatness isn't about power or stuff. It's about serving others, being humble, letting go of your ego.
Boom. That's it. And it makes us reevaluate our own lives. Are we chasing those external things, or are we cultivating those deeper qualities, humility and all that lead to true fulfillment?
That's a deep question for sure. And there's another parallel that really caught my eye. Forgiveness as a path to liberation.
Ah, yes. Forgiveness is huge in both traditions, but man, it's so often misunderstood. It's not about saying what someone did was okay. It's about letting go of all that anger and resentment that's eating us up.
So Jesus says, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And Buddha is all about karma and letting go of anger. How do they connect?
They both recognized how destructive it is to hold on to unforgiveness. It weighs you down. By forgiving, you're not letting them off the hook. You're freeing yourself from that negativity.
So it's less about them and more about us, right?
Totally. And it's a huge shift in perspective. You move forward with clarity, compassion, inner peace, even when things are tough.
I'm seeing that. But the article brings up another big point. Both Jesus and Buddha warned against being too attached to material stuff. How does that fit in?
It's all about where real happiness comes from, right? Jesus had that analogy of the camel through the eye of a needle.
Oh, yeah, about a rich people in heaven.
Right. And Buddha, he pinpointed craving as the root of suffering.
So they're not saying we all need to be poor or anything, right?
No. It's about checking our priorities. Realizing that chasing stuff won't really make you happy.
Wow, this is making me rethink my relationship with stuff big time. But let's shift gears a bit. Another point of convergence. Ethics.
Yes. Living ethically is central to both teachings. It's not just about rules, but developing a deeper sense of morality. Walking the walk, basically.
Okay, so we have Jesus' golden rule, do unto others, and Buddha's eightfold path with right speech and all that. Different approaches, but same destination.
Exactly. They both understood that ethical behavior is key to a harmonious and just society. Your actions have consequences for you and everyone else. Make choices that benefit everyone, not just yourself.
This reminds me of what you said before about love and compassion being active, not just a feeling, but something you do.
Exactly. And that's why their teachings are still so relevant. It's like a blueprint for how to build a more just and compassionate world.
I see that. Love, compassion, transformation, humility, forgiveness, ethics. It was like a beautiful puzzle coming together.
And we've only scratched the surface. There's another layer to this, the idea of going beyond duality and illusion, experiencing a deeper truth.
Okay, now you've really got me hooked. Let's take a breath and then dive into that next level.
Welcome back. We're deep in these fascinating parallels between the teachings of Jesus and Buddha, right? It's mind-blowing how these two figures from totally different times and places came to such similar conclusions about us, about being human.
I know, it's wild. Like we're tapping into some universal wisdom, something that resonates with everyone, no matter who you are.
Exactly. And as we dig deeper, we got to address the tough stuff. We've been talking about love, compassion, inner peace, all that good stuff. But what happens when things get rough? Like real-world problems, conflicts, injustice, pain. How do these teachings help us deal with that?
Yeah, that's the real test, right? Life isn't always pretty. We all go through those dark times, the doubt, the struggles. So how do these teachings guide us then?
Well, first, let's talk about suffering itself. Both Jesus and Buddha, they acknowledge that suffering is just part of the human experience. You can't avoid it, can't pretend it's not there. It's about understanding it, transforming it.
So like, we shouldn't try to run away from suffering. We should lean into it. Sounds kind of counterintuitive.
I know, right? But think about this. Buddha taught that suffering comes from attachment, from craving things. We hold on to stuff, possessions, relationships, even ideas. And when those things change or disappear, we feel pain.
So if we let go of those attachments, we suffer less.
Exactly. It's not about being emotionless or not caring. It's a shift in perspective. Instead of clinging so tightly, we learn to hold things lightly.
I like that. But what about Jesus? He went through a lot of pain, right?
Oh, absolutely. And his teachings give us another way to understand suffering. He emphasized how pain can transform us, how going through tough times can make us more empathetic, more compassionate toward others who are hurting.
So it's not just about our own personal growth, but about connecting with others who are struggling, knowing we're not alone in our pain.
Exactly. And both Jesus and Buddha, they created communities for their followers, recognizing how important it is to have support, especially when times are tough.
That's so true, especially nowadays. So many people feel isolated, alone. It's a reminder that we need each other, We need those communities to get us through the rough patches.
Absolutely. And it brings us back to love and compassion. They're not just warm, fuzzy feelings. They're powerful forces for healing, for change.
I love that you keep bringing it back to action. It's not enough to just think loving thoughts. You got to do something. You got to put those thoughts into action that actually helps people.
Right. Think about Jesus washing the disciples' feet. It wasn't just a symbolic thing. It was love in action.
Right.
And Buddha, walking away from a life of privilege to help others escape suffering, that was compassion in action.
Powerful examples. It's like they're showing us that real love, real compassion means putting yourself out there, helping those who are hurting, working to make the world a better place.
And that's the core of it all. These teachings aren't about escaping reality or finding some individual enlightenment. It's about recognizing that we're all connected and using our lives to make a positive difference in the world.
This is seriously making me think about how I live my life, how I can live these values more fully. But how do we put all these big ideas into practice? It's easy to talk about love and compassion, but how do we actually live that way, especially in a world that feels so chaotic and messed up sometimes?
Yeah, that's the real challenge, isn't it? But I think Jesus and Buddha would both say it starts with being really aware of ourselves and the world around us.
You mean like paying attention to our thoughts and feelings, our actions, being more present, more mindful?
Yes. That's where practices like mindfulness and meditation come in. They help us quiet all the noise in our heads, to just observe our thoughts and feelings without judging them. It helps us find a little bit of peace and stillness, even when everything around us feels crazy.
So it's about slowing down,
Yeah.
taking a breath, really tuning in to what's going on inside.
Exactly. And from that place of stillness, we can start to make better choices. Ask ourselves, what are my values? What really matters to me? How can I use my gifts to help others?
It's like shifting from just reacting to life to being more intentional, more in control.
I like that. And as we cultivate that deeper awareness, that interconnectedness, we naturally start to make choices that align with our values. We're kinder to others. We see the worth in everyone, no matter who they are, what they believe.
It's like a ripple effect, right? Change ourselves, change the world.
Exactly. And that's the power of these teachings. They're not just about finding personal enlightenment. They're about creating a more just, compassionate, and interconnected world.
This has been incredible. But before we wrap up, I'm so curious about this idea of transcending duality and illusion. The article really emphasized that.
Yes. Now we're getting into some deep philosophical stuff. This is where things can get a little mind-bending, but trust me, it's where the real magic happens.
All right, I'm ready to have my mind blown. Let's do it.
Okay, so ready to have our minds blown. We've covered so much ground already, but this idea of going beyond duality and illusion, that's where things get really, really interesting.
It definitely takes us into a more philosophical, heady space. But both Jesus and Buddha, in their own way, were hinting at this idea that how we usually see the world, well, it's not the whole picture.
Okay, so back up a sec. What exactly do we mean by duality and illusion in this context? Give me the breakdown.
Think about all those opposites, right? Good and bad, self and other, pleasure and pain. We tend to see them as separate, but both Jesus and Buddha were suggesting that these things are actually like interconnected, two sides of the same coin. So not denying those experiences, but seeing that they're not totally separate, like they're related somehow.
Right, and this idea of illusion, it goes even deeper. Buddha talked a lot about the illusion of self. Like that feeling of a separate me, it's actually a construct, something our minds create.
Whoa, okay, my mind is definitely starting to bend here. If our sense of self is an illusion, what's the real deal?
That's the big question. Buddha pointed towards this idea of like ultimate interconnectedness, everything constantly changing, flowing. It's called dependent origination, meaning everything arises from all these causes and conditions.
So instead of being these isolated individuals, we're all part of this massive interconnected web of existence.
Exactly. And Jesus, though he used different language, also hinted at this deeper reality. Remember when he said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life"? He's talking about something beyond our limited understanding, something that connects us all.
Okay, this is blowing my mind wide open. But how does this, actually change how we live?
Yeah.
How do we apply this in our everyday lives?
Well, for one, it can make us more humble. If we realize our sense of self isn't the whole story, it's easier to let go of those ego trips, you know? We can act with more compassion, more understanding toward others.
So it's not about erasing our individuality, but seeing ourselves as part of something much bigger.
Yeah. And realizing that can be incredibly freeing.
Yeah.
It helps us let go of that fear and anxiety that comes from holding on too tightly to who we think we are.
It's like that idea of holding things lightly we talked about before, but now we're applying it to our very sense of self.
Exactly. And that shift in perspective can change everything. Our relationships, our work, how we deal with suffering, even how we relate to nature.
It's like all these pieces of wisdom are weaving together into this incredible tapestry.
That's it. Both Jesus and Buddha, they were pointing towards the same truth, a truth that goes beyond words, beyond culture, beyond time.
This has been a mind-blowing journey for sure. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing you hope our listeners take away from all of this?
I think it's this. There's a deeper reality underneath our everyday experience, a reality of connection and unity. And by paying attention, practicing compassion, letting go of that fixed idea of who we are, we can tap into that reality and live a more meaningful, fulfilling life.
And even though these teachings are ancient, they feel so relevant to everything we're going through today.
For sure, they give us a timeless guide for navigating the messiness of life, for creating a better world.
So to all you deep divers out there, keep exploring, keep asking those tough questions. And until next time, keep seeking that wisdom within yourselves and in the world around you.